Hi, this is Nate at Conductrics. Today I want to show you how to get started with our Web Actions feature. So Conductrics is a system for content targeting and personalization, optimization, and testing. There's basically two ways to use it. If you're a developer, you'd be using our API and wrappers. But what I want to talk about today is our Web Actions system, which is a way to use Conductrics without doing any coding. Let's log into the Conductrics console. I'm using a demo account. You can get your own account at our website, conductrics.com. Just click Get Access up here and sign up. It's a free trial. So I'm going to log into my account, and I'm brought here initially, which is the agent list. We just use the term agent to refer to any learning or testing project. So anytime when you want to make some changes to your website or other app, you do so by creating an agent. Let's go ahead and do that now. I'm going to hit Create Agent. And as you can see, there's some text here to kind of help understand what's going on. As it explains, I can use Web Actions to test or dynamically target small page changes, right? So I can hide and show things, change the color of things, maybe change some headline text and move things around on the page and so on. So that's what we're going to be doing here today. I'm going to make up a name for my agent. You can kind of think of this as maybe, you could use anything. It might be something about your spring campaign or, I don't know, some kind of hero changes that you're making on your homepage or what have you. I'm just going to call this Web Actions Test 1 or something. And here you can basically specify how many different experiences, how many different content variations you want to create. So I'm going to just keep it simple. I'm going to assume that we're essentially having Conductrics select amongst two different experiences, but you can set up more experiences if you want to. You could always add a third or a fourth, and I can change the names of these things if I want to. Let's go just with Experience A and Experience B. I'm going to go ahead and create and continue. Before I do that, I'm just going to note that Conductrics runs in two modes. One is a random mode, where we're essentially just doing A/B testing. We're selecting randomly between A and B, and we're finding out which one works best, which one converts the best. I'm going to leave it set on adaptively, which is the more interesting option, really, for in most situations. And that's where we're going to initially try out A and B, essentially randomly. But over time, if we find that B works better for some visitors or A works better for different visitors, we'll start to essentially target those visitors automatically by showing them the experience that's more relevant to them. Anyway, let's create and continue. So I'm brought now to the Web Action Setup page, and this is where we're going to spend the rest of this little video. Here's basically where you specify what Experience A and Experience B actually are, right? So all we've told the system so far is that we have two experiences, and they're called A and B. But this is where we get to actually make some changes to our web page. And we're going to call one set of changes, one version of the page, we're going to call it A, and the other version of the page we're going to call B. That's basically the idea. So let's just go ahead and make some kind of arbitrary change to a pretend web page, just so you get an idea of how it works. I'm going to hit the easiest way to do this is to hit the Select on Page button. And what this is going to allow us to do is basically select visually what we want to change. So let's go ahead and hit Select on Page. We're asked for the URL of a website. This is where you would paste in a page, the URL for one of your own pages. I'm using a demo WordPress website for this tutorial. So I hit Go. And again, this is just a totally made-up page. This is just a default page that comes with a WordPress, a new WordPress account out of the box. As you can see, what Conductrics is helping us do is it's helping us select what it is that we want to make a change to. As I move my mouse around, I see different areas of the screen highlighted, and I basically just click to select. I can also use my arrow keys to change my selection. So I'm going to try doing something to this tagline area where it says just another WordPress site. I think I'm going to experiment with perhaps taking that out and seeing if that responds better. Obviously, this is not a change that's probably meaningful. You'll have your own changes, which will be more interesting. So I'm going to click to select this. That's going to return me back to Conductrics. And so basically, at this point, I've specified the what, right? I've specified what it is that I want to change. And now, over on the right, I'm going to specify how I want to change it. What is it that I want to do to it? I'm going to keep things very simple, and I'm just going to simply show or hide it. So experience A, experience A, people will see the content that I've selected. Experience B, it'll be hidden. That's the simplest kind of change, and what we see is a lot of testing is around that type of thing. So let's hit the big show or hide it button, and I can basically tell the system to show it only when the selection is experience A or the selection is experience B. I generally like to think of A as being the more normal thing and B as being sort of the new change. So I'm going to swap the checkboxes around, but it doesn't really matter. You can do what you want. I'm going to hit Add Change. And what we can see is that the system has made a note that this thing, this here represents what I selected. I'm going to hide it as the page, sort of before the page is loading, before the page displays. And then for experience A, I'm going to show it normally. And for experience B, I'm not going to do anything further. In other words, it's going to remain hidden. So that's all more or less set up for me automatically. I didn't really have to do much. If I want, I can hit this little star button and give the thing that I selected, this, it's called a jQuery selector. That's what I selected visually with my mouse. I can give it a name. So I might call this the masthead, or tagline. Let's call it tagline. So I'm going to just hit continue. And all that's done is given that thing a nickname. It just makes it a little bit easier to read this. So that's cool. Let's go ahead and save our work. And now I can preview the two versions of the pages. And that's kind of an important thing to do. Again, this is such a trivial example that I think we pretty much know what's going to happen. But with your own site, you might want to preview the changes to make sure that you've gotten them just right. Let's hit Experience A. And we can also hit Experience B. As you can see, just each version of the page gets opened up in its own tab. So this is the B version, right? This does not have that content. And if we go back to the A version, we can see that this is sort of the normal version of the page with the content. So of course, just imagine your own, I don't know, new feature or new offer or something like that is the thing that's being shown or hidden. Okay, good. So we've made a lot of progress already. The last thing to do here is to add a reward. In order for any test to be meaningful, you really have to specify what measure Conductrics should use to measure success, right? So it's going to try out Experience A on some people. It's going to try out Experience B on other people. And it's going to listen, essentially, for goals, rewards to occur, conversion events, if you will. And it's going to use that to basically assign a value over time, an estimated value to Experience A and Experience B. And then, in the future, when a new person comes to the site, it's going to pick the option, because we're in dynamic mode, it's going to pick the option that that the system has predicted will give it the most return. Which one is more likely to lead to reward, to a good outcome. So let's go ahead and see what it's like to set that up. So I'm just going to hit Add Reward. And this is really quite simple. You have a few different types of triggers for reward events, conversion events. We keep it simple here. If you're a developer, you can use our API to set up more complex goal events. But you know, these options that are here out of the box will get you most of the way there most of the time. So you can use a page load goal trigger. So for instance, if you consider success to be when, let's pretend that this is an e-commerce site, and so when the user checks out, that's your basic conversion event, let's just say. That's pretty typical. So I can say, okay, well, when the user gets to the order confirmation page, let's just say. So goal trigger type, page loads. As we can see, there's a couple other types. Let's use page loads. Reward this agent when certain pages load by specifying conditions. Okay, so I'm being told that, like right now, if I were to click done right now, this would be, the system would consider a goal reached whenever any page loaded. So now I'm going to be able to tell the system which page it is that I'm interested in. Okay, so if the page path, and then you can see that there's a few different controls. It's all pretty simple. I'm going to say starts with order done. Okay, or checkout success, or whatever it is. Or actually, it's typically it's like thank you. So let's go ahead and hit OK. And so basically reward this agent when the page path starts with thank you. And as you can see, there's a lot of other things I can do here. I can specify more complicated conditions and so on. So let's click done. So now I'm all set up. If I wanted to, I could add other goals, or I could change what goals I have. It could be that when the user clicks on something in particular, for instance, and this is where I can use the visual pointer again, maybe it's when the user searches. So when they click the search button in some, or this could be a submit button in a sign-up form or what have you. You could also do hover events and form focus events and so on. We've learned how to make simple changes to our pages, how to preview them, how to set up reward events. There's a handful of things that I haven't explained yet. Right now, this test, if that's all we wanted this test to do, it's ready to go. In fact, it's already running. Here in the right rail, I can see the agent status. And this basically tells me whether the agent is live or not. Right now, this agent is live and ready to make its decisions. In other words, it's ready to roll on your website. You can pause or stop the agent if you're not ready for the test to go live yet. And in fact, there's a system preference, just a little aside here, there's a system preference that says whether or not new agents in the future should start off paused or enabled. So if you don't like the idea of it starting off enabled right away, you can tell it in the future that new campaigns, new agents should start off paused. In other words, not running. The next thing that's interesting is fixed targeting. So Conductrics comes out of the box with built-in targeting. There's basically two steps to using our targeting. The first step is something you generally only do once. Let's take a look at it. You hit targeting options. And here you have a whole bunch of different sort of targeting attributes. You can choose regions of the world, or if you're in the USA, you could choose regions within the USA. You can choose date and time stuff like weekend versus weekday, whether the person is visiting the site in the morning or in the afternoon or the evening, and so on. There's a bunch of other stuff about browsers and current weather and census data, and so on and so forth. So you can explore this a little bit on your own. I've checked off some of the targeting types just to have something to work with. So I'm going to go back to where I was. That's the part one. That part you really only do once, usually. And part two is something that you would do for each individual agent, each individual experiment. And that's to set up little content rules if you wish. This is optional. But basically, this is a way to, if Conductrix picks up on the fact that the user is visiting from a high income area in the United States, or if they're coming from, Australia or New Zealand, You can specify that they get experience A or experience B or whatever your list of experiences is. So this is basically gives you a way to kind of, I guess, hard code or fix a particular experience to different users based on different criteria. You can also pass in your own information. There's information. You can read about that in our documentation. So if there's information that only your systems would have on your side, you can pass that information to us, and then it'll become available here as something that you can create fixed content rules against. The page filters dialog. This is a place where you can specify which pages in your website a particular set of changes should be made on. So our little example here where we change something in the header of the page, that thing happens on all pages, and so it makes sense for Conductrics to be making, so their first page view, Conductrics is going to select the A or the B. And then as the user moves around from page to page within your site, they're always going to see the same experience. If they were assigned B, they're going to see the B version. If they were assigned A, they're going to see the A version, and that'll remain consistent throughout the rest of their visit. If the changes that you're making only apply on the home page or something, or only on a certain subset of your pages, that's where the content that you've changed is only on certain pages, then you can use page filters to basically tell Conductrics which pages to run on, essentially. So you might say, only run it in the members portion of the website, or what have you. And you can explore. There's some other stuff. You can also, if there's a campaign URL parameter of spring, and so on and so forth. So you can specify different conditions, and you can have in and or conditions in here and so on. So it's fairly flexible. So that's the stuff in the right rail. And the one last thing I want to show you before we reach the end of our short little journey here is some of the other types of web actions that you can set up. So again, you remember at the beginning we selected something and then all we did was show or hide it. I just want to basically quickly run through the different other sorts of things that you can do. You can move something. So a lot of times people use this to move things around move widgets around in a right rail, or move things from left to right in a header or something like that. You can insert new content, so you could change the text that shows in the headline. You can also append HTML if you have little snippets of HTML that you want to add to your page and see whether or not they convert well. You can also remove certain elements from your website altogether if you want to for certain visitors. Sometimes that will change the layout in a certain way that you want. So sometimes removing content makes sense. And you can also set some style attributes. If you're familiar with CSS, you can do things like change colors, change fonts, add and remove CSS classes that would sort of change visual things, maybe padding or layouts and things like that. You could also use Conductrics to load an external CSS style sheet. So if your designer has an alternate style that they want to try out on the website, you can do that. You could also redirect some users to a totally different version of a page. So you basically, when people land at a landing page, you might want to actually serve one version of the landing page versus the other, either randomly or adaptively or based on fixed targeting rules. So you can use that. There's a few other things you can do. You can swap images around and so on and so forth. So I'll let you explore all that on your own. Lastly, up here, don't have time to look through this right now, but there's various reports that will show you all kinds of information about which of your options is working best for which users over time and right now. You'll get information about lift, targeting, and just sort of basic decision stats. How much is each experience essentially earning for you? Okay, that's it. Thanks for listening. And always feel free to contact us at Conductrics if you have any questions. You can just go to our website and click Contact Us. Thanks.